Autumn 1189. The 22nd day of the siege. The Crusaders have suffered heavy losses, but reinforcements have arrived, answering the Pope's call to arms. The Maris Conrad of Monera, with a force of 1,000 knights and 20,000 infantry, lands on the plain of Acre. His arrival is timely, but he gets a cool welcome from G. Luke. Conrad d'Ontpharat is the largest rival to G. Conrad. Both have the same aim, to become king of Jerusalem. There's only one throne, though, so the rivalry between the two men is extremely strong. So what that means is, on the Frankish Crusader side, you have two rivals, both with their supporters and their adherents. So that is, in some sense, is going to split the focus of the Frankish effort a little bit. But for the time being, they share a common enemy in Saladin. They'll never be able to take Acre as long as they have the Sultan on their backs. They have to worry about Saladin, but then they also have to attack this city and get through its walls, and you really can't do both at the same time. Whenever the Franks try to attack the walls of Acre, they get caught in the crossfire as soon as an attack on the city is imminent. The garrison there sends word to Saladin, so the moment the Franks launch their attack on the walls, Saladin attacks their camp, and the attackers are forced to retreat in order to defend themselves. The double siege is becoming a war of attrition. The Christians cannot win. On the evening of October 3rd, G summons his barons to develop a plan of attack. They thought that if Paladin was left there, he would surely be their destruction, and that their best opportunity was to charge and bring him to battle, hopefully either crush him or significantly defeat him, so that he might think twice and leave the area, and give them some breathing room on October 4th at 9 a.m. They launched their attack on Saladin's army behind Music. Then a swarm of Crusaders falls on the Muslim vanguard, while Conrad and his cavalry managed to break through Taqi al-Din's lines, killing nearly 500 of his men. Saladin's nephew has no choice but to sound the retreat. Saladin worries about his nephew and sends men over to help him, and in doing so weakens the center of the Muslim line. The Crusaders see this and punch a hole through that central section right into Saladin's camp. And then they stop because they are so hungry. They sit down inside their enemy tents and they start to eat the food that the Muslims had prepared, and at that moment, they lose all of the initiative of the Music operation. Meanwhile, Saladin tries to save his army that's in full route, and for this, he relies on a powerful weapon. Their faith god is totally central to Saladin, is thinking every time he feels the need to raise an army. He does so in the name of religion, and he proclaims a jihad, that is to say that they fight in the name of faith, that they kill in the name of faith. And in this they understand each other very well. On the other side, they have exactly the same type of reasoning. While the Muslims are regrouping the Crusaders, sure now of victory, continue their plundering, when a totally unpredictable event changes the course of the battle. A single Crusader loses his way. There's a horse that turns around and starts running back to the Crusader camp in front of and you can imagine its owner taking off after it. Come back, right, run after it, and he chases it. But to the people on the further plain, as they see this, it looks like several people running away from the battle in fear, and the moment starts to develop and more people start running and following. And pretty soon it looks like the Crusaders are on the retreat, that they're being routed. And of course, this happens at the exact wrong time. The same time that Saladin is launching his counterattack. Saladin registers. This turns his own troops around, pursues the Crusaders very, very hard. There's a lot of fierce fighting. The master of the Temps is killed. The Muslims take a lot of casualties too. Some senior EMAs are lost, so it's a pretty savage engagement for the Crusaders. The defeat is terrible, 7,000. Warriors fallen in battle, a third of the army's strength. The smell of death hangs over the plain from his camp. G knows that trying another attack could be fatal. He needs to change tactics. The Christians figure out that they were in a horrible position, trapped between the garrison in Acre and Saladin's army, and so they decide to build ramparts around themselves. G orders his men to dig 2 ditches facing both the city and the Sultan's armies. They will fill them with razor-sharp pieces of wood and steel to protect the camp from cavalry attacks behind the ditches' ramparts. Built with earth from the excavations and topped with wooden palisades, will make the camp impenetrable. It's exhausting work, and everyone, even the knights, lends a hand. Now that kind of work takes a lot of time. It's not easy to go out with shovels and dig massive ditches and pound up earth. This is something that's going to take a month, 2 months. 3 months, and you're doing it at the coldest time of the year, so you're entering into November, December, January, February. This is very, very difficult work, particularly for a force that's not well fed. What more? It's not easy to find the materials they need to build their defenses because they were cut off from the interior of Palestine. They would have relied on very little of the local trees. This would have been at most just little orchards. However, any larger defenses they would have had to construct, using timber salvaged from the ships that arrived. Dozens of Christian ships lie scrapped on the beach outside Acre from the ramparts. The men of the garrison can only look on in frustration. The Muslims see this, they see what they're doing, they see them ensconcing themselves with defenses. And again, there are some of the emir that go to Saladin and say, we must attack, we have to destroy these guys before they defend themselves. But again, Saladin dithers. If the Sultan hesitates, it's because when he's alone in his tent, he's fighting an evil that gnaws at him from the inside. He suffers from what the chroniclers describe as colic, which seems to be this chronic stomach pain, debilitating, excruciating stomach pain. His immune system seems to pack up. He gets terrible boils all over his legs. He really does struggle very, very badly indeed, which actually stops him riding, stops him taking part in battles. So Saladin's health is one of the major influences on the siege of AA, unable to lead his troops into battle. Saladin postpones his attack on the Christian camp, and that ends up being the most critical failure of the siege, because once those defenses are in place, you can no longer dislodge the Christians. Saladin could no longer force open a supply line to the city surrounded by the fortified Christian camp. Acre is now cut off from the world. Now everyone prepares for a war of attrition, a cold war whose goal is to force the other to surrender. But for the time being, they just have to wait. Because the siege of ACA stretches over the winter months, it seems there's a period in which there's very little fighting. The mud is prohibitive to move through for horses. And men, the temperature is rain cold, so I think both sides need a rest. Almost there's a sense of almost a sort of an agreement that we park this for a few months, which sounds odd in a long siege or a military situation, but that's simply the reality of it. It's the calm before the storm, because 1900 miles away, 2 powerful new combatants are about to join the Crusade spring 1190, the 205th day of the siege, led by Conrad of Monera. Dozens of warships appear off Acre. Saladin quickly responds. Thousands of his men fill the port and board a fleet of 50 Egyptian ships waiting in the harbor. They arrive from Alexandria just before winter, forming a row. The Muslim ships set sail towards Conrad. Conrad also prepares his fleet for battle, except that his ships advance in a concave crescent line. The idea is to almost lull the army.